Well, as we promised, as our guy CB is getting the microphones ready, the yellow cord, John Thompson, the great John Thompson, has wheeled his chair over here, wrapping up a very busy day here. Mr. Thompson, good to see you as always. Justin Gaard, Minneapolis. We're on the air live right now. I talked to Nolan Richardson on Friday. There were two people I wanted to talk to this year, as I remembered what year it was, 2014. I wanted to talk to Nolan Richardson because, of course, they won the tournament 20 years ago. And I was hoping to talk to you because you guys won the tournament 30 years ago. Does it feel like that was 30 years ago, first of all?
Yes.
You feel it?
My body feels like it. It doesn't relate to the winning, though. No, it does. I mean, you get excited about it at the time of significance. I had a chance to talk to Nolan last week, and we were just fooling around talking about some of the things that happened then. But you always, want to reflect. You don't live in it, but you reflect on things like that because they were very positive experience.
And if it makes you feel any better, his hair is a lot grayer than yours. I'm sure you've noticed that.
I didn't know he had hair. I have hair.
You've got a little bit. But,
yeah.
As you do reflect, I mean, it was 30 years ago. It was a special time. You made 3 national championship games in 4 years. It was one of the best runs a program has ever had. What do you remember about those times? What memories do you have?
Well, I think there's not just one thing that you focus on. I think it's a collection of things, and most of the time the journey getting there is far more significant than once you get there. And I think the joys, the disappointments, and all the things that you have to do in order to be successful yourself. And the kids that you've been involved with and what they've had to go through to do it. So I'm not certain that you pinpoint one thing. You just deal with the experiences. We had to work very hard.
Yeah.
We had a group of kids that responded. We probably have had better teams that did not win it than teams that won it, but things fell in place.
Well, you talk about those runs, the deep runs, the great teams you did have. A lot of that came with great freshmen who went through the growth process and kind of learned. What do you think about this Kentucky team and the growth process that this young team has made down the late stretch in their tournament?
And I think John, and I told him that yesterday, I think John has done a great job with his young team, but let's flip this. Last year he didn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
sure.
Coaching is a funny thing because a lot of it has to do with the temperament of the kids that you have and how they respond. He played against a team, Wisconsin's, that you don't want to play against with the senior team.
Right.
Because of how they play, the cat and mouse, the controlling of the tempo of the game. You've got to play defense for 35 seconds. You can't play it for 10 and then relax. And he took freshmen and played that with them. And so he did a masterful job coaching them. But I'm certain that he's done the same job with another group, and they didn't respond in the manner in which this group responded.
As you were walking over, I was talking about a couple of weeks ago. I had a long drive. I was listening to Sirius College Sports, where you just came from, and a lot of Kentucky. This was the first week of March, and as you can imagine, a lot of Kentucky fans call in the national radio shows to talk about their squad. And the first week of March, to a man, they were all sick of the one-and-done stuff. The Wildcats hadn't played well. They missed the tournament a year ago. And there were 4 or 5 calls, Coach, that said, I just don't think we're doing this right. I know that we won the title a couple of years ago with freshmen and a young team, but I just don't think it's working. What has changed since that first week of March that now obviously it is working? They're 1 game away from another national championship.
Well, I'm sick of the one-and-done stuff, too, but for different reasons, because I think there is a value on a young person getting an education. I think the most misleading thing about kids leaving school is that we evaluate it based on how they go in the NBA as opposed to how they come out. Most of these kids come out poor,
right,
regardless of what they get going in, and the educational experience does have a value. And I'm not into telling any kid that the experiences that you encounter in college is not enough. That being said, a parent asked me once, should his kid leave? I said no, but he's got to leave. And he said, why? I said, because of the amount of money that he's going to get. And, he's not going to be able to get that. So, I understand what the fan is saying, because you attach yourselves to personalities and, when they had the Larry Birds and all, and I'm sure the people out in Indiana remember they went to school with Larry. When Larry was here, we did this. And, it's just a hard thing to deal with. It's the sign of the times. It's how you coach those kids, but also the experience that those kids have in being at a university. Patrick stayed there. Alonzo stayed there. Allen left. You know what I mean? And I missed Allen when he left because of the fact that I thought we had some more work to do. You know, so it's a very difficult emotional thing to deal with, but it's a sign of the times.
You're always going to coach situations differently with young guys, old guys, but one thing that stays constant is when the teams go on runs, basketball, tons of runs, especially that game last night, Kentucky-Wisconsin, back and forth the whole way. You know, as a coach, outside of calling a timeout, is there a way that you can compose your players or kind of stop the run? Is there a go-to thing that you can kind of lean on?
You have to know the temperament of the team. You notice that Cal was calling timeouts very quickly because he had a young team.
Right.
Whereas you have older guys, and that's to what maybe the fan was alluding to. If you have older guys, you've had enough experience with them that you say that they can resolve it out on the court themselves. But you get out there with freshmen, and you see that stuff going bad, you got to call a timeout real quick because you don't know what they're going to do out there. And that's why he was calling timeouts quickly, because of the fact that his team was young. So in answer to your question, a lot of it comes from your feel for your team. Napier. If I've got Napier on the floor, I don't have to call timeout real fast because of the fact that I know that he's a great point guard, he's connected with his coach, and that he knows how the coach is thinking over that. But you got a guy who's a freshman who's trying to impress people, you better call timeout real fast because you don't know what the hell he's going to do out there.
If Kevin Ollie calls you in the next 36 hours and says, Coach Thompson, how am I going to stop Randall tomorrow night?
Pray.
That's the only answer, right? That's what every coach we've talked to has literally said, you can't stop him. There is no game plan. I have no advice for you.
Exactly. Well, and you know also that the Wisconsin's kids were told the right thing. You know what I mean? Listen, that Kentucky group, they're overpowering going to the offensive board.
Yeah.
If you can stop them from going to the offensive board, you've solved the problem. But they put that thing up there and they go after it. And not only are they agile, they're strong. They're very strong. They're lengthy and they're strong. And that's a difficult thing. You got to keep them off the boards. But that doesn't mean to me that I don't think Connecticut can beat them. They've already beaten teams that I didn't think they could beat.
No kidding.
Athletically speaking, Connecticut, are they shaped up well to kind of hang with the athletes that they have in Kentucky? Nobody is.
No, not.
But they weren't the last two games either.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. See, no, athletically, and the question mark on Connecticut is its front line. It's not its backcourt. You know, its front line has got to show up, and they have shown up recently and been pretty consistent. But Kentucky's, I mean, they're just so athletic. You know what I mean? We can talk about their age all we want to. You know, I'd like to have an athletic bunch of dummies rather than have an intelligent bunch of guys who are not athletic. You know what I mean? Because they go after it. Not to say that those kids are dummies. I don't mean that to imply that at all. But what I'm saying is that they're so damn athletic. They got to throwing stuff up at, and you say, my God.
Well, here's the picture that illustrates it, Coach. Here's Kaminsky right where he's supposed to be, right? And there's Marcus Lee about a foot higher than him dunking it.
Exactly, and quick. They're quick, you know, they're strong. But the thing that surprised me most, and I said this to Cal at the end of the game, the thing that surprised me is how intelligently they played for a young group of kids. They took their time. They didn't panic. You know, and they controlled things when they had to control things. But you could see game plan was just to go into the paint.
Yeah.
I mean, they just kept penetrating and penetrating.
So what's as we wrap up, last thing, what's their game plan tomorrow night in terms of Kentucky, and who do you think wins?
Well, you know, everybody that I picked literally has already lost. You know what I mean?
Hey, you're just like us.
You know,
we're all the same.
Soul that I picked, but I would have to, and most sane people probably would have to pick Kentucky. But that don't mean they're going to win because, you know, you stop and think about this. How many coaches haven't wished that Connecticut would win based on who they were playing, thinking that Connecticut was an easy out and Connecticut beat their butts? You know, because I know I'd sit there and watch it when I was in the tournament. I said, now I hope this team wins.
Yeah.
Because I can beat them.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you jump up and we playing SMU and damn near running for our lives. We playing Princeton and damn near running for our lives. Everybody talks about the Villanovas and those games.
Sure.
But we played in a hell of a lot of games where teams that I wanted to play against, I was praying 60 Hail Marys that I could get out alive. So it's no way you can't predict it really.
But how has UConn done it? Because you mentioned they play Michigan State. Well, but even like they've just unraveled teams like Michigan State. I've never seen a Tom Izzo team just look panicked. Florida panicked last night. How have they done?
And you're 100% correct, but because UConn does play good defense too.
They do.
They're a very good defensive team. But I just think their backcourt, if anything shows you, if you've got talented players and got a good point guard, you're a hell of a lot better off. And that's the thing. I had no idea that Napier was as good as he is until I got in this tournament. I had seen him play.
Sure.
You know, you look at some of the games and say, oh, that's UConn. They so and so and so. But Napier is an extremely, extremely good basketball player because he can score himself. He can set himself up. He can set others up. He understands the pace. He connects with his coach. And that's a luxury. That's a very much a luxury. Certainly Daniels has played extremely well, you know, but I wonder how well some of those other kids would play if Napier were not on the court. A sign of goodness is not necessarily how you can get yourself to play, but how you can get other people to play because of how you play.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for fitting us in. Enjoy the game tomorrow night.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The great John Thompson here on Radio Row. Let's